think of a bus, you might picture something shiny, flashy, or controversial, but the ones that truly earned their place in history weren't glamorous at all. They were the workhorses, the machines that rumbled down highways and city streets, day after day, year after year, and just kept going. From Greyhound coaches that crossed 1,000,000 miles of open road to those big yellow school buses that carried kids through rain, snow, and blazing summers, these were built to last. Some stayed in service for 20, 30, even 40 years, long after anyone thought they still had life left. Today, we're counting down the 10 most durable American buses of all time. 1953 to 1960, GMP D4500. When Greyhound introduced the GMP D4500 in 1953, it was a revelation. For years, most highway coaches had been built like trucks, heavy frames, bolted bodies, and all the compromises that came with them. The 4104 threw that playbook away. It was America's first mass-produced monocoque aluminum coach, light, rust-resistant, and strong enough to handle millions of miles without shaking itself apart. Under the floor sat the Detroit Diesel 671, a rugged inline six rated at about 238 horsepower. Paired with a simple 4-speed Spicer manual transmission, it wasn't fast, but it was nearly unbreakable. Operators loved it because the parts were everywhere, mechanics knew how to work on it, and the whole package just kept running. Many 4,104s crossed the 1,000,000-mile mark in service, an almost unthinkable number in the 1950s. For Greyhound, Trailways, and dozens of smaller operators, the PD4104 became the backbone of American intercity travel. It carried soldiers to bases, families on vacations, and students off to college year after year. More than just a coach, it was the first true symbol of durability in modern American bus design, a standard that would echo through every Greyhound depot for decades to come. 1959 to 1977, GM New Look Fishbowl. By the late 1950s, America's cities were ready for something new. GM answered with the new look in 1959, a bus that would define urban transit for nearly 2 generations. More than 44,000 were built, making it the most successful city bus in North American history. For riders from Los Angeles to New York, and for countless Canadian towns in between, this became the face of public transit. Its nickname came from the curved windshield, that wide, bubble-like sheet of glass that gave it the fishbowl look. Underneath, it carried the dependable Detroit Diesel 671 and later the 8V71, usually paired with an Allison automatic transmission. Mechanics loved its modular panels, which could be swapped out quickly after a fender bender. But what really cemented its reputation was staying power. Many fishbowls served 30 or even 40 years, rolling well into the 1990s and early 2000s. Few machines worked harder or lasted longer in daily city grind. For millions of Americans and Canadians, the fishbowl wasn't just a bus. It was the backdrop of everyday life, carrying workers, students, and families through the heart of the 20th century. To this day, it remains one of the most durable and beloved buses ever built. 1941 to 1960, flexible clipper. Long before interstate highways stretched across the nation, the flexible clipper was already carrying Americans from city to city. First appearing in 1941, it bridged the war years and the post-war boom, serving as an intercity coach, a charter favorite, and even a touring vehicle for small operators. With its rounded, streamlined body and stout proportions, the Clipper looked every bit the part of a machine built to go the distance. Beneath the skin sat the Detroit Diesel 671, the same rugged inline six that powered everything from trucks to landing craft. Combined with a heavy steel frame and straightforward mechanical systems, the Clipper was easy to keep alive. Mechanics didn't need exotic parts or complicated tools, just a good wrench and a little patience. Many Clippers went well beyond their intended lifespan. After retiring from big-name carriers, Countless units found second lives hauling tourists, church groups, or sports teams, sometimes for another 20 or 30 years. A handful survive even today, preserved by enthusiasts or lovingly restored to their former glory. The flexible Clipper remains one of America's longest-lived highway coaches, a symbol of the transition from pre-war grit to post-war mobility, and proof that simplicity can mean real staying power. 1940s to 1990s, Crown Supercoach. If you grew up on the West Coast, chances are you remember the Crown Supercoach. Built in California starting in the 1940s, it earned the nickname Tank on Wheels for good reason. These massive school buses were designed for tough duty, carrying kids not just across town, but up steep grades, down winding mountain roads, and through blistering desert heat in California and Nevada. The Supercoach used a mid-engine layout, often with a Cummins or Detroit diesel power plant, giving it strength and balance. Its welded steel frame and aluminum body made it unusually safe for the era, with a sturdiness parents and school districts trusted. These buses were heavy, rugged, and capable of hauling big loads without complaint. But what set the Crown apart was its sheer longevity. Many of them stayed in service for 40 or even 50 years, something almost unheard of in school bus history. Generations of kids rode the very same bus from kindergarten to graduation, a living piece of community life. Today, the Crown Supercoach is remembered as more than just a school bus. It's a cultural icon of the American West, forever linked to the memories of students who climbed aboard those yellow tanks decade after decade. 1948 to present, Bluebird All-American. Since 1948, the Bluebird All-American has been a constant presence on American roads. Unlike most buses that come and go, this model has never left production. It became the very definition of the American school bus, that unmistakable yellow silhouette parked outside schools from Maine to California. The All-American was built tough from the start, using a unibody design that gave it strength and durability. Offered in both front-engine and rear-engine configurations, it adapted to whatever districts needed. Over the decades, it has evolved through generations of power plants, from gasoline to diesel, then to cleaner options like compressed natural gas, hybrid systems, and now fully electric drivetrains. What never changed was its reputation for longevity. A Bluebird All-American could easily serve 20 or 30 years, outlasting many of the kids who first climbed aboard. Its sturdy frame, straightforward maintenance, and ability to adapt to new technologies made it the workhorse of school districts nationwide. Beyond mechanics, the All-American became a cultural icon. It is the most durable school bus in the world and a global symbol of American education, instantly recognizable, instantly nostalgic, and forever tied to the memories of childhood. 1978 to 1990s, MCI MC-9. In 1978, Motor Coach Industries introduced the MC-9, and it didn't take long for it to earn a reputation as the workhorse of America's highways. Replacing the earlier MC-8, the MC-9 quickly became the backbone of Greyhound, Trailways, and countless charter operators during the 1980s and 1990s. If you took a long bus trip in that era, chances are you rode in one. At 40 feet long with seating for 47 passengers, the MC-9 was a big, solid machine. Power came from Detroit Diesel's 8V71 or the later 8V92 TA, engines known for their torque and toughness. Its high-floor layout, strong frame, and simple systems made it easy to maintain while still handling heavy loads and punishing long-distance schedules. More than 6,400 were built, and many went far beyond their expected service lives. Even after newer coaches arrived, plenty of MC-9s kept rolling into the 2000s, often in charter work or smaller fleets. The MC-9 wasn't flashy or futuristic, but for 2 decades, it carried America's workers, families, and soldiers across state lines. Reliable, rugged, and everywhere, it remains one of the true backbones of intercity travel, a coach built to endure. Today, the NovaBUS RTS lives on mostly in memory. and in the hearts of those who knew it well. For some, it was the sight of a rounded silhouette waiting at the corner on a rainy morning. For others, it was the steady hum of a Detroit diesel carrying them home after a long shift. The RTS represented a vision of what public transit could be, not just practical, but futuristic, even stylish. Preservation groups and private collectors have made sure the design isn't completely lost. A few restored RTS coaches still roll into bus shows, their fiberglass curves polished, their engines tuned to remind us what city streets once sounded like. They draw crowds not just because of nostalgia, but because they mark a bridge between eras, from the post-war new look to the low-floor fleets that define our cities today. In the end, the RTS's legacy is clear. It proved that innovation could make a bus more than a box on wheels, and it left behind an image that millions of riders can still picture decades later. How about you? Do you remember riding a NovaBUS RTS, maybe in New York, Miami, or Houston? Share your stories in the comments. We'd love to hear your memories. Give this video a like if it brought one back, and don't forget to subscribe for more journeys through America's transit history. 1978 to 2003, Orion I/Orion V. When Orion Bus Industries rolled out the Orion I in the late 1970s, it marked the rise of a Canadian-built contender that would soon find a home across North America. By the mid-1980s, the refined Orion V carried that reputation even further, becoming a staple of fleets from Toronto's TTC to New York's MTA and Washington's WMATA. For decades, these boxy, no-nonsense machines proved themselves as some of the toughest high-floor transit buses ever built. With their squared-off design and stout frames, the Orions weren't built to win beauty contests. They were built to last. Power came from dependable Detroit diesel two-strokes or later Cummins engines, both proven in harsh daily service. What set them apart was how well they endured Canada's brutal winters and America's salted roads, conditions that ate lesser buses alive. Many Orion Is and Vs served 25 to 30 years, far beyond the average lifespan of a city bus. Their ability to shrug off cold, corrosion, and constant stop-and-go punishment made them favorites among operators who valued reliability over flash. For thousands of riders, the Orion was just a daily ride. But in the history of transit, it stands tall as one of the most durable high-floor designs ever to roam American and Canadian streets. 1983 to 1997, NovaBUS Classic. When General Motors bowed out of the bus business in the 1980s, Canadian transit agencies faced a choice. They weren't ready to gamble on the futuristic RTS, so they turned instead to something familiar, the Classic. First built by GM, later carried on by MCI, and finally NovaBUS, the Classic was essentially a modernized version of the beloved new look, squared off and practical, yet instantly recognizable. Its design featured a boxier body and wide entry doors, paired with the Detroit diesel 6V92TA two-stroke, and later Cummins engines as emissions rules tightened. What it lacked in flair, it made up for in reliability. Mechanics already knew how to keep it alive, and agencies knew it could take the punishment of daily service. Durability was the Classic's calling card. Even after production ended in 1997, fleets across Canada kept them running for another 15 years. Montreal's STM operated its last Classic in 2012, nearly 3 decades after the model's debut. For riders, the Classic was a familiar sight and sound on city streets. For history, it marked the final chapter of the high-floor era, proof that GM's design DNA could survive long after the company itself left the stage. 1990s to 2010s, MCI D4500. By the 1990s, city transit agencies and commuter rail systems needed a bus that could handle punishing schedules, hauling thousands of workers in and out of crowded downtowns every single day. Motor coach industries answered with the D4500, a 45-foot commuter coach that quickly became the backbone of fleets like NJ Transit in New Jersey and GO Transit in Toronto. Under the hood, most carried the Detroit Diesel Series 60, a modern workhorse known for torque, efficiency, and reliability. With a high-floor layout and massive underfloor luggage bays, the D4500 was built for volume, packed morning and evening runs, stop-and-go traffic, and the endless grind of urban commuting. What set the D4500 apart was its staying power. Many served 20 to 25 years in daily service, an incredible feat considering the relentless pounding of rush-hour duty. They became a common sight in the Northeast and Canada, carrying generations of commuters who depended on them rain or shine. The D4500 may not inspire the same nostalgia as a Fishbowl or a Crown, but in terms of durability, it more than earns its place. It stands as the modern symbol of the commuter coach, built strong, built to endure. Looking back at this list, one thing stands out. Durability doesn't happen by accident. It comes from solid engineering, tough engines, and the trust of passengers and drivers who counted on these machines every single day. The PD4104 proved a coach could run 1,000,000 miles. The Fishbowl carried generations of city riders for 40 years. The Crown Supercoach hauled kids through mountain roads for decades. Each one showed that when you build something right, it can outlast expectations, and sometimes even outlast the people who designed it. Today, low-floor designs, hybrids, and electric buses dominate the roads. But the memory of these iron workhorses lives on, in museums, in grainy home videos, and in the stories we tell. Now it's your turn. Did you ride a Greyhound MC-9 on a cross-country trip? Did you go to school in a Crown or a Bluebird All-American? Which bus made the biggest mark on your life? Share your memories in the comments. And if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because we've got plenty more stories of America's most unforgettable machines still to come.